Hey guys, it's Thankful Thursday. I'm Rachel, and I'm here this week with Kel. This week we're going to answer a question that came to us through the feedback videos, and it's I'm not a child anymore, but how do I face responsibility as an adult for my life? I sort of chose this question this week because I kind of feel like it kind of relates to where I'm at the moment in terms of my own recovery. And for almost 10 years now, I've lived at home. I moved out of home when I was 18 to go to university for the first time, and due to a number of issues that occurred when I was at university to do with the abuse, I moved back home, and I've never really left since. And I did move back there and continued university, but a huge amount of responsibility was taken off me by living at home. And so it's only now, and it's like 10 years later, that I've decided to finally leave home. And right now I'm in the process of moving to London to live with my girlfriend, and there's a lot of anxiety there, a huge amount of anxiety and a lot of fear. You know, I'm 28 years old almost, and you know, I've never lived independently, and I've never had to pay my own bills, and I've never had to run a car or pay for the insurance for it, or have a job and pay bills and pay a mortgage and support anybody. I've very much been supported. I've been very fortunate in those circumstances. And you know, as hard as I've tried to become independent for myself at home, I know that this is like the next sort of final step that I need to take to really attain some form of responsibility in adult life. I know for me, my difficulties with my eating disorder were not always so much to do with staying as a child, but they were a way of trying to find independence. And you know, the backlash of that has been that it's made me even more dependent and more needy. But I think at first it was a way of trying to ascertain some independence and some control over my own body and over my own self and how I functioned. And what ended up happening is that I just ended up becoming completely dependent on my family. Not just emotionally and in terms of physical need for food and all of that, but financially as well. I mean, I haven't been financially independent at all, and as I said, you know, I'm going to be 30 in a few years, and that's something that I've never had because I've never been able to work. And I know that although taking the step to move out isn't completely going to free me financially independently from my parents, it will allow a form of sort of emotional independence. And you know, I'm terrified of that, and there's a huge big part of me right now that kind of is like, oh, do you know what, I could just not do this, and I could just move back, stay at home, and just, you know, stay in that position as a child. Because as hard as I try to assert my attention, my independence when I'm at home, I am a child in my parents' home, and that is how they still view me. And as much as they try to see me as an adult, I'm still in that role of a child. And you know, financially I'm dependent on them, and emotionally I'm dependent on them, and in many ways they're dependent on me because they're used to having this child there. I don't know how you kind of go from being in that position to suddenly being responsible and being an adult, and I guess it's about taking steps. And some of the early steps that I took to be able to have some independence have been things like saying, well, my parents wouldn't pay for my therapy, but you know, saying, okay, I'm going to take control of this situation, I'm going to pay for my own therapy, and I'm going to support myself that way. They didn't support me through university. Instead I took out loans. That was another way of me not being able, like, not having to ask them for money to support me. And it was just little things that I could do that stopped me needing to ask them for things and actually having to do without, because while I'm at home I can ask them for anything that I want. And so what then was different for me was to say, well, how about you don't ask them for those things and you actually try and find a way yourself of being able to manage that. And that isn't just money and being able to afford things. That's to do with stuff like when I've been really struggling. What I did last year, I would usually turn to my parents, is phone one of my closest friends and say, could you come be with me? It allowed my parents to continue to go on their holiday that they wanted to go on to, which for so many years would always have been cancelled, to care for me. And it allowed me to be able to say to my parents, I'm taking responsibility for myself, you need to go and live your own life, because I'm not going to be at home forever and you deserve to live. And that's been very important to me. And it is hard, and I have a huge amount of anxiety about the changes that I'm making at the moment and about the move, but I also know that I would do myself a huge injustice. And I think that this does happen with recovery, and I think that obviously it's different for everybody, but I'm someone who's been in the family home for a long time, and I think if you are in that situation, that it is important to look at the pros and cons of staying in that environment. And for a long time it's been advantageous to me to stay in my family home and be supported by them. My mum has been an absolute gem when it comes to supporting me with my food and my recovery, and so that kind of it worked because it was enabling rather than disabling. And I've kind of got to the point now whereby I do realise that it's beginning to affect me more negatively than positively by being at home. And that doesn't necessarily mean that my parents are doing anything wrong. It just means that I'm ready to be an adult and I'm ready to take responsibility for myself, and that is going to be an important step for me. In terms of the question and thinking about facing responsibilities in your adult life, like I've said, I think it is going to be a case of taking small steps that are manageable, that are sort of testing the water. For me to be able to do this, they say that to become independent you need to learn to become dependent, and I think I've very much been able to depend on my family, depend on my friends, and depend on my therapist. And because I've built a secure base around them, it's now going to enable me to know safely that I'm taking these steps, but they are still going to be there. My friends are still going to be there, my therapist is still going to be there, my parents are still going to be there. And although I'm moving hundreds of miles away, that they will be there for me if this doesn't work out. And there's a huge strength in that. I think that there's also a process of mourning when you're trying to let go of these connections to a childlike state and these dependencies on people and these needs for people. And just because you're an adult and you're a grown-up, it doesn't mean that you don't have needs. You can still have the same needs that a child might have, and that's okay to need people, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to need support. Some of the responsibilities I'm going to have to take is responsibility financially for myself, and not be able to spend money as freely as I have been, and that's going to be a huge big step for me, and it's something I'm going to find very, very difficult. I know that Tracy's also in the process of moving, and I wonder if she would be happy to do a response video to this. I might speak to her about that, because that is an adult step. She's going to be moving into her own home, and it is scary stuff. It really is scary stuff, but we've got to take these chances. And I hope that this video has kind of reassured some of you that it's not actually that scary being an adult and having responsibilities, and there are people around you who are going to help you and who will support you, and it doesn't have to be this huge, big, overwhelming thing. If you've got any more questions, feel free to PM us at Freedom Fighters, or to write to me personally, or whatever is the easiest for you. Okay guys, see you later, bye.